Hello, and welcome to the May 2023 edition of KRAD Readings. I'm Keith R.A. DeCandido, coming at you every month with a new piece of short fiction to read. Before we start, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. One, to urge you all to support me on Patreon, because I'm a starving writer and I need support. No, seriously, the Patreon really is a huge help. You can pay anywhere from $1 a month to $20 a month. The various features include monthly TV reviews, monthly movie reviews, extremely regular cat pictures, occasionally leavened by a dog picture or some other small fuzzy creature, weekly excerpts from my works in progress, and first looks at my first drafts of my short stories and chapters of my novels as they are completed. It's a really cool deal. You get lots of really cool stuff for a relatively small amount of money. So please consider it. Patreon.com/crad. Also, as usual, I have lots of books and anthologies I'm in for sale. If you go to whatever your online book dealer of choice is, you will find, and search my name, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff that you'll probably love. Also, I write for Tor.com, and you should definitely read all the stuff I'm doing there. I'm writing about Star Trek and about screen adaptations of comic books, primarily for Tor.com, as well as the occasional thick piece on other things. I recently did a piece on the Dungeons & Dragons movie, for example. The weekly Star Trek Enterprise rewatch is still going on, and there's also my reviews of the new shows that appear on Paramount+. Starting next month, you'll see reviews of the second season of Stranger Worlds, for example. And I reviewed every episode of the recent third season of Picard, which had a lot of discussion, as you might imagine. Speaking of Star Trek, recently Titan magazine started up a new Star Trek magazine called Star Trek Explorer. Among other things, Star Trek Explorer features original fiction. Each issue has 2 short stories in it, and if you subscribe to the magazine, you get a digital supplement which has additional material, including 2 more short stories. I sold them a story, which was my first work of straight-up Star Trek fiction since 2010. I'd done The Klingon Art of War, which was more of a reference-type book. I'd done material for Star Trek Adventures, but that was it. I hadn't done any straight-up fiction at all in the Star Trek world since the Seven Deadly Sins anthology 13 years ago, and until now, when I sold them a Deep Space Nine short story called You Can't Buy Fate. However, that only appeared in the digital supplement, so if you bought the issue thinking you would get the story, you didn't get it. So, for those people, and just in general, because it's a work of my short fiction, and that's what I do here, I'm going to read for you my Deep Space Nine story, You Can't Buy Fate. This story is dedicated to the memory of Aaron Eisenberg, who played Nog and who died a couple of years ago at the far too young age of 50. Aaron suffered from numerous issues involving his kidneys and other problems, so the shortened lifespan was not entirely a surprise, but it still sucked. Aaron was a friend of mine. He and I had first met at a convention in 2001, and we stayed friends all the way until he died. We did lots of conventions together and hung out together and exchanged emails with each other. He was a great guy, and he is seriously missed. And I'm really sorry he didn't get to see this short story. So, anyway, here we go. You Can't Buy Fate by Keith R.A. DeCandido. Station log. Colonel Kira Nerys, Deep Space Nine, Stardate 53018.4. We've been contacted by the Oralhad Confederacy, a small nation from the Gamma Quadrant. I've sent Counselor Dax and Lieutenant Nog through the wormhole to make first contact. As the runabout Sungari emerged from the wormhole, Lieutenant Junior Grade Nog said, "Setting course, 127 Mark IV, speed warp 5. We should rendezvous with the Oralhada ship in 20 minutes. Then he looked over at Dax, sitting in the co-pilot's seat. By the way, Ezri, my uncle's holosuite should be fixed in time for your date tomorrow. At Dax's surprised glance, he added, I saw the reservation list when I was scheduling the repair. Banerjee's set to work on it this afternoon. Dax favored him with her bright and beautiful smile. Thanks. Julian and I are going to visit the cliffs of Bol. And hey, that's good that you're delegating. It's the sign of a good chief of operations. Nog hoped Dax couldn't see how happy seeing her approbation made him. Uncle Quark doesn't think so. He doesn't want anyone but me working on his holosuites. But the Colonel wanted me on this mission. Tilting her head with amusement, Dax said, "Quark will get over it. Besides, you don't want to miss the first contact since the war ended, right?" "Definitely not," Nog said with a small smile. Then, recalling a trip with Jake, Captain Sisko, and Uncle Quark 5 years earlier that went bad in a hurry, he added, "Let's hope it goes better than the first time I came through the wormhole in a runabout and made first contact." Putting an encouraging hand on Nog's, Dax said, "I'm sure it will." Once again, Nog hoped Dax couldn't see how affected he was by the brief touch of her hand on his. When Nog had first met Jadzia Dax, he was just a kid, and she was the Trill female who came to Uncle Quark's to play Tongo. Jadzia was like family, a kind of eccentric, intimidatingly tall aunt. When he had first met Ezri, after Jadzia had been killed and the Dax symbiont implanted in the counselor, Nog was an adult, having been granted a battlefield commission during the Dominion War. When he was dealing with the trauma of losing his leg, Ezri had been there to help him. Jake would have told him that it was just a crush, if Nog had had the courage to tell Jake, or indeed anyone, about how he felt about Ezri. But it didn't matter. She and Julian Bashir were a couple, and Nog couldn't compete with the genetically enhanced doctor. A notification sounded on his console. "Entering the Bean Searing system. Coming out of warp." Dax started running her hands over the console. "Sensors are picking up an Oral Hottish vessel 50,000 kilometers off the starboard bow." Nog started moving toward the other vessel at 1/8 impulse. "They're hailing us," Dax said. Looking to the comm screen on his left, Nog saw the face of an alien with golden skin, an oval-shaped head, cylindrical ear protrusions, 4 eyes with a lengthy vertical slit that was apparently its mouth between the eyes. There was no evidence of a nose. "To you fair travels we wish. Of the Oral Hottish Confederacy, Shipmaster Rona I am called." "I'm Lieutenant Nog of the United Federation of Planets. This is Counselor Dax." Before Nog could continue, he was distracted by an alarm. "What the? Wrong, what is?" The console was lighting up with several messages in red. "We're having multiple systems failures!" Dax was also getting the alarms on her console. "Sensors are down. Navigation's down." The lights flickered out, plunging the runabout into darkness. "Main power's down." "Emergency power is starting to fail also," Nog said. "Happening? What is?" "We don't know, but we may need to beam over to your ship." "Expecting that we were." Then the screen went blank. "Communications down," Dax said, "and the antimatter containment field is starting to fail also." "Computer!" Nog said urgently. "Emergency transport!" Unable to comply. Before Nog could reach down to grab the emergency transport armbands, the warp core exploded. When Nog regained consciousness, he had no idea who he was. And then he realized it was worse than that. He had too many ideas of who he was. His mind was flooded with memories of things that never happened to him. Holding a crying infant with small ears and spots down her sides, playing a keyboard, getting drunk with Dahar Master Kor, going on a hike with a woman he didn't recognize yet remembered as his sister, leaping through the air and twirling around 3 times before landing on his feet to applause, getting drunk with Captain Sisko, reading Down the River Light to his sick daughter, agonizing over a phase coil inverter that wouldn't work right, getting drunk with Commander Worf, trying desperately to keep a broken-down shuttle from crashing, being shot by Captain Sisko, and so much more. "What is happening?" he cried out. "Awake you are," said an Oral Hottish who was standing over him. "What happened?" Nog asked. Where am I?" "On the vessel of Shipmaster Rona you are. Physician Krande I am. Dying, your companion is." Slowly, Nog sat up from the cot he was lying on. He felt something odd on his stomach and on his left leg, and then realized he was unclothed. Oddly, he was both mortified and unconcerned with his nudity. There was a blue gel in a line across his stomach, and several other bits of similar gel on various body parts. His left leg now ended at the knee, the stump covered in the blue gel, and of his biosynthetic left leg, he could find no sign. He was in an oval-shaped room. Other cots were dotted about the space, only 2 of which were occupied. one with another Oral Hadish, and one with Dax, both of whom were also unclothed. Those two cots had holographic displays in an alien language hovering over them. Dax was also covered in many places with the blue gel. Physician KRAD was standing next to Nog's cot. He had a thin torso with 4 arms, 2 on either side of the center of the thoracic region, and 4 legs protruding from the bottom of the torso. KRAD said, "As it was exploding off your vessel, we transported you. Very long and hard our surgical team worked. Your anatomy we are unfamiliar with. Guess we had to." "We need to contact DS9, Nog said. "On their way, your people are. In 15 minutes, they will arrive." Even as his mind was crowded with dozens of unfamiliar memories, a more familiar one came to Nog now. The sensor reading he glanced before the Sangari exploded. A section of the wall irised open, and Shipmaster Rona stepped through. "Awake that you are, I am glad to see. In a vessel, Colonel Kira is now approaching." "You've got to contact her. Tell her to stay 50,000 kilometers away from this ship." "Understand, I do not." "Your ship gives off radiation waves. It's an exotic radiation that I haven't seen in 200 years. It's inimical to Federation technology." Even as he said it, Nog was boggled as he realized he had encountered it 2 centuries ago, during the Earth-Romulan War at a remote outpost, when he was Tobin Dax. The Oral Hadish had put the Dax symbiont in Nog. Given the presence of the blue gel on Dax's entire stomach area, she must have been wounded near the pouch, and KRAD mistook the symbiont for one of Nog's organs. Tobin never had figured out a way to counteract radiation waves, but something from Jadzia's time as a science officer clicked in Nog's head, and he realized that he knew a way he could modulate a Federation starship's shield to resist the waves. But that needed a wait. Ezri wouldn't last long without her symbiont, especially in a sickbay that didn't know a trill from a Ferengi. To Nog's relief, Rona wasted no more time with questions. "Colonel Kira, Shipmaster Rona. 50 kilometers keep your vessel, please." Kira's voice came over a speaker. "Defiant to Rona. What's going on?" "Colonel, it's Lieutenant Nog." "You're all right!" "Not really. Long story. But Ezri and I both need medical attention now. But if the Defiant gets closer than 50,000 kilometers, it'll blow up just like the Sangari did." He turned to Rona. "Can you transport us over?" "At this distance, we cannot. Of our teleportation, the maximum range 35,000 kilometers is." Normally, Nog would have had to work through the problem, but to his amazement, a solution presented itself almost immediately. "Colonel, can you drop 2 EVA suits into space and then move off?" "I don't see why not, but I don't see why either." "Once you do that, Shipmaster Rona can move close to the suits and transport us into them. Then the Oral Hadish will move off, and you can pick us up." "A brilliant idea, that is," Rona said approvingly. "Preparing the EVA suits now," Kira said. "10 minutes later, Nog and the unconscious Ezri were transported into the EVA suits. 5 minutes after that, they were beamed aboard the Defiant. Bashir was anxiously awaiting them in the transporter bay, and he immediately went to Dax with his medical tricorder. Nog found himself with conflicting thoughts. He knew from Starfleet emergency medical training, his own, Jadzia's, and Ezri's, that you always check the unconscious patient before the conscious one. But the part of him that was Leela, who was quite the ethicist, was cranky about him treating his own girlfriend, while the part of him that was Ezri was thrilled to see his beautiful face. Kira was standing next to Transporter Chief Phenoxnor. Nog limped down off the platform. The EVA suit's left leg stayed rigid for support, and looked at the colonel. "I need to modify the shield so we can approach the Oral Hadish safely." Bashir stood up. "You don't need to do anything except report to the medical bay. If I don't get the symbiont back into Ezri soon, she'll die." Nog had been afraid of that. To Phenoxnor, Bashir said, "Beam her directly to the medical bay." Then to Nog, "Let's go." As he followed Bashir out of the transporter bay, Nog said to Kira, "I'll have that shield modification for you once we're done." Bashir had Nog sedated as soon as he got him out of the EVA suit. He faded into unconsciousness, Julian's lovely face staring down at him. And then nothing. Both Kira and Bashir were standing over him when he woke up. The latter asked, "How are you feeling?" "Empty," was the first word that came to mind. It had only been for a few minutes, but he had gone from the memories of 11 people to just one, which was devastating. Bits and pieces of Dax's past hosts disappeared like wisps of smoke. "You'll be happy to know that the new biosynthetic leg is being prepped on DS9. It should be ready by the time we get back. As for that empty feeling, with some help, you should be able to work on that." Bashir then smiled, with our brilliant counselor. Nog's heart raced. "Ezri's okay!" Then Dax herself approached in the biobed in a hospital coverall, but smiling brightly. "I'm fine, Nog. I'm Ezri Dax again." Letting out a breath that he felt like he'd been holding since the Sungari system started to fail, Nog said, "That's good." Kira said, "When the doctor says you're ready, we can start your shield modulation plan." And then Nog felt a completely different kind of emptiness. I don't remember it." Dax put a comforting hand on Nog's shoulder. "It's okay. I do remember it. At least the theory. I've got no idea how to implement, but maybe I can talk you through it?" They spent the next hour working together, Dax voicing all kinds of theories about shield mutation and rage and waves and so on that were at once completely familiar and totally new to Nog. But they managed it. And then the Defiant was able to approach the Oral Hottest ship. Once the modulation proved beneficial, Bashir, Dax, and Nog returned to DS9 in one of the Defiant's shuttlecraft, as both still had significant recovery to do, leaving Kira to continue the first contact. Sitting in one of the shuttle's passenger seats, Nog looked at Dax in the next seat over. The memories were gone, but the emotions associated with them hadn't faded. He'd been Dax, even if only for a short while, which meant he'd been Ezri. He felt like he knew her even better than ever, including the depth of her feelings for and loyalty to Bashir. Nog no longer had a crush on Dax. He was now completely in love with her. However, he was more determined than ever not to tell her. Then she turned to look at him. She smiled, put a hand on his, and nodded. Now Nog realized that she knew how he felt. After all, he'd hosted her symbiont too. And he was also sure that it was okay. Returning her smile, he leaned back in the seat contentedly, her hand still on his. And that's the story. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back next month with another story. Not sure what it's going to be yet, but it'll be something. Do keep an eye out. There's 2 Kickstarters coming up over the next few months that I'm going to be begging for support for. One's for a steampunk anthology, which is going to be taking its cue from The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I'm going to be doing a Professor Challenger story for it, and it's going to be full of stories either featuring Conan Doyle characters or at least inspired by Conan Doyle. There's also going to be a Kickstarter for an weird Western anthology called The Good, the Bad, and the Uncanny. And I've got a story in that will feature both Bass Reeves and Calamity Jane, which is the team up I think we all need. So, so you'll want to keep an eye on Kickstarter for that, and please consider supporting both of them. There'll be more on that. If you follow me on my various bits of social media, you can keep up with those things and keep up with me in my various convention appearances. I'm going to be appearing at Trek Long Island on May 20th and 21st, which is in Hauppauge, New York. I'll be one of the many author guests there, and there'll also be a ton of actors from the various Star Trek series, including from the original series all the way to Star Trek Picard, as well as several Star Trek Discovery guests, people from Star Trek Prodigy, from Deep Space Nine, from all kinds of Stranger Worlds, all kinds of places. And as well as several behind-the-scenes people, and again, lots of authors, including myself, Rob Perlman, Michael Jan Friedman, Aaron Rosenberg, Glenn Howman, and also Christopher D. Abbott, Adina Mignogna, and a few others. Of particular note is that all 4 contributors to the Sherlock Holmes Cases by Candlelight Volume 2 anthology, myself, Christopher Abbott, Michael Jan Friedman, and Aaron Rosenberg, will all be there, and we will have little previews of that anthology at that show. Over Memorial Day weekend, I will be at the Hunt Valley Inn in Cokie'sville, Maryland, just north of Baltimore, for the Horror on Main convention. I'll be there at the East Beck Books table selling and signing books, and I'm also going to be doing a reading at some point during the weekend. And then my next convention appearances won't be until July, including Shore Leave, Connecticon, and GalaxyCon Raleigh. I'll talk more about that next month. So check me out there. Find me online at DeCandido.net. My blog is at DeCandido.wordpress.com. My Facebook is Keith DeCandido or the fan page Keith R.A. DeCandido. You can follow either of those. I'm at Twitter at KRADEC, KRADEC. I'm on Instagram at KRAD418. I'm here on YouTube, obviously. And you can find me at Tor.com as well. Thank you so much. Please stay safe, and I'll see you next month.